Sorry,
Do you know
DJ.
the worst thing that happened to the Marlins was all the winning they did right before the deadline?
Why?
And I don't want to yuck on the yum because it was super exciting. And I was at one of the Yankee games. I loved seeing Marlins Park sold out and all the people there. But what it did is it made the owner, Bruce Sherman, and it made the GM, President of Baseball Ops, Peter Bendix, sort of rethink what they were going to do at the deadline. And so they ended up not trading some of the players they should have traded because they had this thought that, wow, we're actually this team, not the team that we thought we'd be in real life, which is a team that wasn't going to compete for a playoff spot. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe all the analytics were wrong, and that we can catch the NL wildcard leaders. Except that wasn't realistic. And so what do? If you make the trades and you trade Sandy and you trade Cabrera, all of a sudden the fans say, oh, it's the same old, same old. And Greg Cody, you would be on this show right now. If the Marlins had sold at the deadline and then lost a bunch of games, you would be MFing them saying, same old, cheap ass, hate the owner. But they didn't do it, and now they're losing, and now you're despondent also, which means, Greg, you're just always despondent.
No, there's a couple of things at play here. First of all, Cabrera had genuine trade value, and it depends on what they could have gotten for him, whether or not I would have liked the trade. The equation is also that Sandy, his trade value went way down this season. I mean, his ERA was over 8 for much of the season. I don't think they would have gotten all that much for him, so they were sort of do you disagree, David? They were sort of backed into a corner in terms of trading Sandy. They just couldn't get what they thought he was worth. True?
So it's funny. Players are worth exactly what you can get, and what your job is to have better baseball people. And if you want to be the Rays, which is what Bruce Sherman has said, I want to be the Rays. So to be the Rays, you have to identify players that other teams don't realize are going to be good, but you know they're going to be good once you have them. Then any trade you can win. The Rays win every trade with players you've never heard of because they have a baseball department that identifies value and projects greatness in a way that other teams just aren't good at. I was terrible at that, but it doesn't matter.
So they got Peter Bendix from the Rays because of that. And so who was behind not being active on the trade deadline? Was it the owner or was it Bendix, do you imagine?
Oh, I imagine it was just the owner.
Oh,
I
really?
imagine the owner said, I don't want to take any heat. I don't want to do a quote-unquote fire sale. I want to take advantage of the possibility of winning games and being a playoff team and being – it turns out what this Marlins team is like, they're a lot like the '06 Marlins, with a bunch of young players, fun to watch, interesting, going to win games, and then going to end up, I don't know, 79 and 83 at best. That's not terrible. You can even win Manager of the Year that way, but it certainly doesn't give you playoff revenue.
But, I mean, in defense of the Marlins, they did identify players that other people didn't value, and Kyle Stowers and Marcy, Agustin Ramirez, and they just had a price set on people like Sandy, on Edward Cabrera, who are still under team control for years to come. So they decided, you know what, we're not going to get what we want for them. We can revisit this in the offseason. We can revisit this next year. We don't have to sell them now. They're still under team control. They're not free agents that are just going to leave and it's now or never.
So the thing about pitchers, now with hitters, I agree with you. During season deals with hitters, it's rare to really get a huge deal. Now you've got the Sotos. In theory, what happened with Suarez going to Seattle. But it's bullpen arms and it is starting pitchers where their value is greater right at the deadline where you can extract something. And I really would prefer you not to keep mentioning Stowers and Jeremy will back me up on this. Stowers was a throw-in in the Norby Stowers trade, just like an extra guy to make it a 2-for-1 for Trevor Rogers.
David, that's
but
the
look
point.
What happens.
David, that's the point, that they saw something in Stowers that the Orioles didn't. You just said that's what their job is to do.
What they thought is they were getting the value of Norby, and now Stowers, you are going to get players who outperform what your expectation was to the positive. The key is to get the principals back in a trade who other teams are willing to make as principals who you value as greater. So while Sandy may have an ERA of 6, there were teams out there that would have traded for Sandy. The question is, could they identify players who they felt would add value at a smaller number? Because you're right, Sandy's under control. and I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say he's $17 million a year for the next 2 years. But you also have Stanton at $10 million a year for the next 2 years. People forget about that, but that's a huge part of the Marlins payroll here going forward. And that's a player not playing for you. Therefore, what you want to do is have a pitcher not making $17 million a year. You want to have guys that are all pre-arbitration eligible, maybe in their first year of arbitration. You want that to be the makeup of your rotation, because then it can smell a lot like 2003, where you can bring in a veteran who's at the $10 million range, let's say, as a complement in your rotation.
Jeremy, you're going to back him up? He said you would back him up. You going to back him up?
So Stowers was another piece in that trade. I just think it actually, like Chris said, it proves the point of being able to identify players whose value is low and being able to turn them into another piece. So you look at, again, Billy brought up Jacob Marcy. Jacob Marcy considered by many as a throw-in into that trade. But if you look back at Peter Bendix's comments when the trade for Luis Arias was made, he really valued Marcy from the jump and his plate discipline. Since he's come up to the major leagues, he literally has the best eye in baseball and leads across several different categories. Now it's 18 games, but you're seeing the dividends of what they believed in, which is the approach. That's not to say that he'll drive the ball the way that he is as a center fielder consistently through the rest of his career. But Otto Lopez, another guy who they identified, who was DFA'd, who's been a really productive player for them. They have been, even for that matter, a nothing trade. Nick Fortes, who didn't have a ton of value. They identify Matthew Etzel, who's been ripping the ball and already promoted from AA to AAA. So they have thus far been in that space, and the debate that you will see is ultimately, will Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara, if they're moved, be moved for the value that the Marlins were looking for? Because their decision at the deadline was to not move those guys because they set a bar for what it is that they wanted, and no team surpassed that bar ultimately. You can look at other complementary pieces and say, sure, maybe they should have been moved, but there are other starting pitchers who just simply did not get offers for them.
David,
that's where we disagree, Jeremy, because I don't believe it was about a bar not being met. I believe what happened is the team was so competitive that they actually changed what their plan was. And that's a big difference. And when you look at a team like the Rays and a bunch of really good teams, they don't change their plan based on a small sample size. So, for example, when you have an untimely winning streak and get yourself back to 500, the problem there is that it really shouldn't change what you were going to do. And the plan always was to move Sandy at this deadline. Now, is it possible that they set the bar at a Cy Young level and the true bar was at a very good $17 million pitcher where 7 teams would want him? But I think what happened is they were told at the top, and you're never going to get Bruce to admit this, but I think, and it's good for fans, they want this. Fans of the Marlins have always wanted this, so I'm happy it happened, but it can really set you back. But I love the owners saying, hey, man, we're playing well. Let's see if we can ride this out.
So it's interesting to me, David, because you say there, you don't want to change plan based on a small sample size. I find it hard to believe that Peter Bendix would change the plan for the future based on a, small sample size of the team performing a few games under 500 throughout half the season. But you think that it's the owner who made the call, we're standing pat, we're not selling off anything.
I promise you that doesn't come from a GM. I promise you the decision to buy or sell is made by 30 men, not president of baseball ops. Owners have the final say in whether you are buying or selling and how much salary you can take on, whether or not you're able to take on money, whether you have to shed money. I promise you, it's not just meddling owners in the way you describe them. It's 30 owners make that decision.
David, let me ask you this. Setting aside the right of last, basically the buck stops here of the owner says, my way is the highway, right? If you, as the president of baseball ops, your owner comes to you and say, look, I know what you're saying from a strategic standpoint. It makes sense to sell right here, but they're going to kill me if we do that. Look, is there any part of you that's like, all right, that makes sense, beyond them just telling you, hey, you got to do it because I said so?
I mean, I had 18 years of arguing with the owner up and arguing with the GM down about things that we were doing, not just at the deadline, but during the off season. Where as president, I had to take into account what the finances of the team were. I had to take into account millions of other things other than are we getting value for this player at this time. You're looking at an overall team budget. You're looking at the industry. You're looking at a work stoppage that could be happening. So you've got a lot of other things on your mind. So I lost plenty of arguments up. I gave in plenty of times down the chain. So that's what being a president is of any company. Is that you have to decide when you're gonna make a stand and realize that at the end of the day, hey, if Dan wants something, Dan's going to get it.
How many
On the
times-
other side, it's my job to tell an owner, to tell a GM, but I'd like you to understand a few other things that are going on that may require you to reevaluate your position.
Right. So how many times did you win that argument up?
Actually, you win it more than you realize. You aim for 51%. You'd like to win more than you lose every argument you have, both up or down. And there were some years when you're doing it long enough, some years you're 80-20, some years you're 20-80. It really depends. When we were chasing Amy, I'll tell you the biggest loss I ever had was after Jose died. I thought that we should start rebuilding, that we couldn't win and we should be making a bunch of trades. And the owner said, forget it. Let's sign a free agent pitcher. Let's try to replace him. We'll bring in oh, come on, Jeremy, the guy who pitched the no-hitter.
Jeremy.
Henderson Alvarez?
No,
Edinson
Jeremy.
Volquez?
Edinson Volquez.
Finally.
Edinson Volquez.
Wasting
Thank
our
you.
time.
Did you have that one, Jeremy?
I mean, I had
Obviously
it with
not.
my second guess.
No, he didn't know. He's an idiot.
I was going to guess Pablo Lopez. David, what's going on with Kyle Tucker?
Can you imagine what is going on there? The guy is slumping, no doubt, but Cubs fans are booing him. He doesn't run out a ground ball. I get it, but this guy is the middle of your lineup, and you want him to re-sign as a free agent. And then on top of that, you're despondent because you were passed by a Brewer team that is winning games at a historic rate, having this huge hamburger-laden win streak, and now you say, we're going to rest them a couple days. They're in the middle of a 5-game series against the Brewers. Now's when you're going to rest him because you think you have a better team with Kyle resting? Give me a small break. You got to play him. Play it through. He's slumping. He'll get a little duck fart. He'll get something. He'll get a senile ground ball, and he'll be fine. He's got to play.